Did you go visit that person? You got to see lots of sites, right? Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get started here now. Welcome everyone, welcome. This of course is called Purposeful Invisibility of Haiti, co-sponsored by MIRAC, which I'm a part of. My name is Victor Ramirez, and we also have an organization co-sponsored by, it's meant co-sponsored by the Haiti Justice Committee of Minnesota. How does it work out is that we have a variety of topics that we're going to cover. And we have each of our presenters here, whom I'll introduce one by one. After all of us give our presentations, we're actually going to have food back there, and we're going to divide ourselves into different groups of topics that we have just talked about. So we'll get to that. A couple things I also want to talk about is that please silence your phones. Yes. Can everyone hear me?
It's better if you talk right into it.
Right into it? Oh, okay. Yeah. So just a disclaimer, just please silence your phones, be respectful of the presenters here. Like I mentioned before, we have bathrooms behind you. My left, women's bathroom, my right, men's. This presentation is also going to be live streamed via Carla Riella from Minnesota Progressive Media. It'll be archived as well, so just bear that in mind in case you don't want to have your face shown through video. Lastly, I also just want to point out that some people may have been confused as to the title of the event, Purposeful Invisibility of Haiti. What we mainly mean, and I'll just talk about this real quick, is just talking about how the U.S. media had purposely not given proper coverage to Haiti with what's going on over there. Definitely a lot of violence, a lot of turmoil happening over there, and reason being is that the U.S. doesn't want to put itself in a bad light towards the public. So I'm sure that's something, a recurring theme that we'll be talking about through our presentations here. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started here. First, I'd like to introduce April. April is a retired French professor who's had led multiple trips to Haiti and just specializing in working with women writers, and she'll be covering on the historical context of Haiti briefly. Please welcome April.
Thank you so much for coming. The title, The Invisibility of Haiti, that first part of the title of this gathering today, reminds me of the Onion newspaper. In their issue right after the 2010 earthquake, the headline was, "Earthquake Reveals New Civilization in the Caribbean." Because people just are kept completely ignorant of Haiti. And the other thing that happens if there is any coverage of Haiti, is that the Haitian people themselves are blamed for all the violence, all the dysfunction of the government, all of the ecological damage to the island. That we are led to believe in the mainstream media that this is all the fault of the Haitian people. It couldn't be more false. The Haitian people are not to blame for the poverty and dysfunction and ecological destruction of their country, nor are natural disasters like hurricanes and earthquakes to blame for the thousands of deaths. Colonialism, slavery, and U.S. occupations and interventions are the culprits. The Haitian people were the first colonized people to defeat an empire, to establish a black republic, and the only people in the history of the world to emancipate themselves from slavery. And the colonial powers, the imperialist powers, the racist Western powers do not want this history known. So I gave you a handout on, actually Rick passed it out for me. I put together a brief history of Haiti, covering centuries. So I'm just going to go through some of the highlights of that for you, and you're welcome to take that home. And if you'd like a copy electronically, I'd be glad to send it to you. So Spain and France colonized the island that Columbus named Hispaniola. Both Western powers brought Africans to the island to work as slaves in the sugarcane fields. In 1697, France began to import 20,000 Africans every year. By the second half of the 18th century, the French colony was producing 3/4 of the world's sugar, creating enormous wealth for France. More wealth than all of the British colonies combined produced for Britain. When the French Revolution started in 1789, a sizable block of the revolutionaries wanted to end slavery in all French possessions all over the world. The word began to spread to the colonies. And in 1791, can we go back to that first one? In 1791, the insurrection began. This iconic statue, which is in front of the presidential palace in the capital, Port-au-Prince, shows the beginning of the insurrection, the call to arms with the conch shell. It was organized by escaped slaves, maroon communities up in the mountains of Haiti, and it spread very quickly to all the plantations in Haiti. In 1796, Toussaint Louverture, with the support of the insurgents, declared himself governor of the colony because the most revolutionary part of the French Revolution was in control, and they had abolished slavery in all the colonies. However, in 1802, Napoleon, who had hijacked the French Revolution, reinstated slavery and the slave trade. He sent a naval force of 20,000 men to Haiti. They kidnapped Toussaint Louverture and sent him to a prison in the Alps, where he died. The insurgents kept fighting and succeeded in defeating the French Navy. In 1804, Jean-Jacques Dessalines declared Haiti an independent country. 1804. This outcome was completely unacceptable to the Western imperial powers, and including the U.S., which still had a slave-based economy in 1804, right? The U.S. certainly didn't want any trade or commerce or any communication with Haiti. So these powers set up a blockade around Haiti, banning all trade and travel. In order to lift the blockade, France demanded that Haiti pay restitution for loss of all property. And in that, they included not all the land that France had controlled, but all the people who had been slaves. They asked for 150 million gold francs. This is in 1820. 150 million gold francs. And Haiti paid with loans from U.S. banks. The U.S. occupied Haiti from 1915 to 1934. That's the longest occupation in the history of the U.S., although Afghanistan may soon surpass that. But it's an amazing time period, 1915 to 1934. The Marines landed to put down a peasant revolt that caused an unstable situation in the Caribbean. Pushing forward quickly, from 1957 to 1986, Duvalier, father and son, their dictatorship ruled Haiti in a very, very brutal fashion. The Duvaliers were supported by the U.S. In fact, during the Duvalier dictatorship, U.S. investment and aid was increased. The people resisted, throughout this whole period of dictatorship and organized Lavalas, a popular movement that forced Baby Doc into exile in 1986. In 1990, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, the candidate of Lavalas, was elected president of Haiti with 67% of the vote. He pledged a massive literacy campaign, doubling the minimum wage, redistribution of agricultural land, and purging the government and army of all Duvalier loyalists. Before he could do all of that, in 1991, a Haitian colonel led a coup d'etat against Aristide's government. The U.S. was most probably complicit in the coup. The reason we don't know for sure is the U.S. destroyed all the documents in both D.C. and Port-au-Prince before they allowed Aristide to return to power. So all the documents about the coup, the 91 coup, are destroyed. In 2000, Aristide was elected again. And I'm sorry, okay, right. He raised the minimum wage, succeeded in doing that in his first months in power, and demanded that France repay those 150 million gold francs with interest. Well, you can probably guess what happened. In 2004, he was kidnapped by U.S. and French agents. It was a U.S. military plane that flew him to Africa, and puppet governments have been installed ever since. Today, the U.S. and the IMF continue to interfere in Haitian affairs, blocking educational initiatives, privatizing all utilities, including the telephone, and helping to create free enterprise zones where people work for $5 a day, sometimes less. The 2010 earthquake destroyed many neighborhoods in the capital and nearby towns. More than 300,000 people died. The capital city's population had increased dramatically in the late 1990s to early 2000s as people fled the countryside to find work in the city. Due to colonial and imperial policies of stripping the land of trees and minerals, the soil had completely eroded and people could no longer farm. As they flocked to the cities, makeshift homes were built, all completely destroyed by the earthquake, burying people in the road. So this natural disaster was really a colonial, white supremacist disaster. So-called natural disasters are usually created by colonial and neo-colonial exploitation. And I'm sure Ruben will have more to say about this. So, yeah, I'm actually finished with my brief overview of Haitian history, and be glad to talk with you later about it.
Thank you, April. That was a really insightful presentation on what's been going on, how Haiti's been just occupied by the U.S. mainly, and how we can still see that in today's contemporary times. Next is Michelle Rivero. Michelle is actually a director of the Minnesota Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. She'll be talking about the impact of TPS and where we're at today on the topic. Please welcome Michelle.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Michelle Rivero. I'm with the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs for the City of Minneapolis. And I am an immigration attorney. I have practiced as an immigration attorney for 18 years. So I'll talk a little about TPS, what that means. I'll also talk about the Trump administration's actions on TPS, specifically with regard to Haiti and then other countries as well, because it's part of a systematic policy to reduce the number of visas or types of status for individuals here in the United States. I'll also talk about what people can do in response to these policies, both individually in their own cases and then in a group cell format. And I'll also talk about other options to remain in the United States. So briefly, Congress created TPS within the Immigration Act in 1990. Temporary protected status is for nationals of specifically designated countries whose citizens are confronting ongoing armed conflict, environmental disaster, or extraordinary or temporary conditions. It's valid for periods of time of 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months. And 60 days before the expiration of a period of TPS, the DHS Secretary must decide whether to extend temporary protected status or not. TPS does not by itself lead to permanent immigration status. If a person has TPS and loses TPS, they must investigate what other options exist to be able to remain in the United States, because once TPS ends and the person no longer holds TPS, the person is removable from the United States and can be placed into removal immigration court proceedings for deportation. Individuals obtain TPS coming from a variety of different situations. Some enter the United States without inspection. Some enter with another visa classification, for example, a visitor visa, and then apply for TPS once temporary protected status is open for a nationality. Some have filed applications that were unsuccessful and have filed for TPS afterwards. Some have also been in immigration court proceedings already, and those proceedings are what is called administratively closed to enable a person to file for TPS. So people who are applying for TPS have a variety of different immigration situations before they file their applications for TPS status. There is information about TPS not only for Haiti but other nationalities on the USCIS website. It goes through the extension periods, re-registration periods, when you needed to have been in the United States by. The latest extension of TPS, and as we understand, TPS for Haitians will end on July 22nd, 2019. The re-registration period was from January 18th, 2018 to March 19th, 2018, with an automatic extension of work authorization for people who timely filed until January 2019. So while that seems to be, the fact that the Trump administration has ended TPS and has given this window of additional time of 18 months for people to settle their affairs, the time passes very quickly. So for individuals who have TPS or people who know people who have TPS, the time really is now to start talking about identifying other options, what legal remedies exist, and where you can pursue them. So in November 2017, the Trump administration announced that TPS for Haitians would be ending. That was met with a very strong outcry, not only by Haitians themselves, but supporters of Haitians here in the United States. Multiple lawsuits have been filed in different federal courts challenging the methodology behind terminating TPS. And maybe you've seen articles about some of these lawsuits in the news. There are lawsuits about other terminations, such as DACA, which I think has gained a little bit more visibility. It's the same type of idea behind the lawsuit, that the government does have the power to terminate programs that it creates, but it must do so in a way that does not violate notions of due process. And the challenge for the Trump administration here is to successfully argue that they did, in determining how to end the TPS program, do it in a way that does not violate notions of due process, when we've heard Trump himself, or it's been reported that Trump himself has certain very unflattering things to say about people who may have darker skin, for example, or come from countries that aren't favored countries for immigration status in the United States. So there are several lawsuits that have been filed. I believe a couple are in New York. I believe there's one in Florida as well. One of the participants in, one of the attorneys representing individuals who filed in federal court is Ira Kurzban, who's a very well-known immigration attorney in Florida. There have been plenty of articles on this topic. If you're interested in doing further reading, I would strongly recommend you do so, because federal litigation is such a powerful avenue to obtain a remedy when you feel that the government is doing something that's wrong. And we're seeing that federal courts are actually not only entertaining these lawsuits, but ordering the Trump administration to halt, for example, with DACA, to allow processing of DACA renewals. And we'll see what happens with this TPS litigation for Haitians, what the result is. I want to briefly talk about what other options exist for individuals to remain in the United States if it's not possible to remain with TPS status. Before I started this position with the Office of Immigrant Refugee Affairs, I did briefly work for a nonprofit organization called Volunteer Lawyers Network, which tries to connect people who need legal assistance with attorneys who can provide that type of assistance for free. It's very important for people who may be losing TPS status or who don't know what their immigration status is right now to consult with an immigration attorney. That's the most important thing. And cost in Minnesota, we're very lucky because we have a number of nonprofit organizations, including Volunteer Lawyers Network, the Advocates for Human Rights, Immigrant Law Center of Minnesota, that provide assistance to people who cannot afford to pay for an attorney. VLN runs a clinic every week, Park Avenue Clinic, and the other organizations that I've mentioned. I have a handout which lists them all and their contact information, their hours of operation, and what they focus on. Okay. Some of the options that exist for individuals who feel they cannot go back to their home country include asylum. If you have been persecuted or you fear persecution on the basis of your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or because you're a member of a particular social group, you can qualify for asylum. An asylum application can be filed affirmatively directly with USCIS, or if you're in immigration court proceedings, can be filed with an immigration judge. Once your application has been in process for 150 days, you can qualify for a work authorization document, which is valid for a 2-year period. The first application for a work card is free. There is also no charge to file an application for asylum. It's very important if a person is thinking about filing for asylum to consult with an immigration attorney to talk about the parameters of the case. There have been some pretty significant changes in asylum processing over the course of the last several months during the Trump administration. For example, affirmative applications are going to USCIS for interview much more quickly, within 3 weeks, as opposed to what was the case before, a year to 2 years to get to interview. For that reason, it's very important to consult with an attorney and identify the strengths, the weaknesses of your case, try and collect documentary evidence before you actually prepare and before you actually file the application, as opposed to waiting for interview. Another possibility that's only available in immigration court proceedings is called cancellation of removal. Cancellation is a way to get permanent resident status. You must show that you have resided in the United States for a period of 10 years. You must also show that you have a qualifying U.S. citizen or U.S. permanent resident family member, that can be a spouse, child, or parent, who would suffer exceptional and extremely unusual hardship if you are removed from the United States and sent back to your home country. And that hardship can be whether the person travels with you to your home country or if the person stays in the United States while you're forced to return to your home country. In a situation like Haiti, where there's a significant degree of continuing instability, I would argue that that would make for a very powerful cancellation case, particularly if you have a situation where there is a qualifying U.S. citizen or U.S. permanent resident family member who has some type of disability, health condition. When one case where a client of mine won cancellation of removal because his mother had cancer and he was taking her to her appointments, and she was very dependent on him. So that's an example of the type of hardship that can help someone qualify for cancellation of removal. Another possibility that one should not forget is filing through a family member. Many individuals who hold TPS status now have resided in the United States for a decade or more, and may have significant family ties, may have children, may have gotten married to U.S. citizens or permanent residents. It is possible for family members to over 21-year-old children or spouses to file, and parents for under 21-year-old children to file applications for immigrant status, immigrant visa petition. The application number is I-130. The immigrant visa petition by itself does not give you the right to reside in the United States, but it is one step in obtaining immigration status in the United States. It may be possible, depending on the degree of relationship and how the person originally entered the United States, to also file another application. It's called I-485, application for permanent residence, along with the I-130 petition, in order to obtain permanent residence in the United States. The only way that a person is going to find out about those options is if they actually consult with an immigration attorney, talk about their situation, talk about their family relationship and the hardships, and then an attorney can, at the conclusion of the consultation, identify whether there are immigration options that exist and the risks in pursuing those immigration options. So there are some individuals who have already been in immigration court proceedings, who've already been through the system and have deportation orders. Individuals who are in those situations, it's very critical that they communicate with an immigration attorney to identify if it's possible to reopen their cases and apply for another immigration benefit. And it's even more urgent that people in that situation communicate with an attorney immediately, because if they have TPS and an existing removal order, at the conclusion of TPS, the government can apprehend those people and, without a hearing, facilitate their removal from the United States. So something very important to consider for people who believe they have already been through the immigration court system before and have an existing removal order. The last thing I wanted to talk about briefly is what we all can do to improve the situation of Haitians who fear losing TPS status, and what will happen next time. The first, and I can't say it enough, is to communicate with your elected representatives and tell everyone you know, everywhere in the country, to do the same thing. I have spoken with my parents who live in Louisiana and my brother who lives in Florida, where there are some more conservative views regarding immigration, to put it mildly. And I have tried to encourage them to reach out to their elected representatives, and they have, but also to communicate with their family and friends regarding their opinions on DACA, on TPS, on a variety of immigration-related issues. It's important to understand, and I'm sure you all do because you're here, that TPS and extending TPS and ensuring that people are not separated from their family members, it is not a Republican issue. It is not a Democratic issue. This is an American issue that affects Americans. So to the extent that we can all communicate with our elected representatives, Democrat and Republican, and explain to them the reasons why we support an extension of TPS, or a law that would benefit individuals who have had TPS and who have been in the United States for a number of years and who fear deportation if TPS ends, the more likely we are to, the more likely we are to obtain success. And if you think that that's unrealistic, pie in the sky dreaming, think about the fact that TPS was created in 1990. during the administration of,
George H.W.
that's right, a Republican. So it's, it's not impossible. I think it's good to dream. It's good to set your sights high. And I think the more calls that people get from their constituents, the more this issue will be elevated. As I said, I also think federal litigation for people who are affected is important to consider. The ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, is involved in federal litigation. So is the National Lawyers Guild, National Immigration Project of the National Lawyers Guild. For individuals who have TPS, identifying what other options exist for them to remain in the United States and to start doing consultations with attorneys now, not in 2019, so that there's enough time to line up if there's another application possibility. And then, one last thing to consider with regard to legislation that impacts citizens of a specific country. There was a law, the Haitian Refugee Immigration Fairness Act, that provided a method for Haitians to apply for a permanent resident status. From my understanding, the deadline period is over for principal applicants, although derivative beneficiaries, I'm not sure if you are familiar with that, I can talk about it a little bit, but there is the possibility of creating legislation that would benefit individuals of specific nationalities, such as Haitians. So thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for providing all those great resources. And I'll also mention that we'll have a list of all these resources and whom they pertain to, any other circumstances, over there on the table at the end of our program today. Next, I'd like to introduce Ruben Joanem. He's a Haitian American. He's had multiple trips to Haiti, led multiple delegations in order to deliver humanitarian aid. And Ruben will be talking about the concept of disaster capitalism, more from him. Please welcome Ruben.
Thank you very much, and what a pleasure to be here. And I'm kind of beyond what, because I wasn't expecting so many people, and we prepare food, but I thought there would be maybe half of it. So the whole batch of food is at home. My wife worked all night last night at the hospital, so I cannot call her to bring more food. But I didn't want to drag so much food here that I wasn't sure whether there would be enough people to eat the food. But now the food is sitting back home. I don't know what to do with it. My wife is sleeping. I cannot call her to bring the food. And I'm going to eat a tiny little bit.
We'll have samples.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that.
Everyone eats many.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I would like to talk briefly about disaster capitalism as is applied to Haiti. But if disaster capitalism were only applied in Haiti, and it was okay in the rest of the world, then we will have a wonderful world. Then we will try to fight the Haitian can take the fight, because they fought the most trained army at the dawn of the 19th century and on. They keep Napoleon Bonaparte behind. So we can take it. Bring it on, we can take it. But this is not the case. It is a misnomer to think that it's only applied to outside of the United States. That is not true at all. I am here as an eyewitness. I'm here to bring an eyewitness account of what disaster capitalism is. Okay. Remember, at the end of the Bush administration, the U.S. economy was on the verge of some kind of big collapse. There was the famous TAG project where Congress enacted law to make available about $7 billion to prevent the collapse of the U.S. financial system, with dire consequences for humanity around the globe. What happened, the bank got $700 billion, and part of the deal where they were to help, they're supposed to help homeowners stay in their house. We know what happened. The CEO of the bank got millions in bonus, and then millions of people lose their houses to foreclosure. That's what really happened. Nobody can hold a Lehman Brothers or a AIG accountable. The money is flowing, you know. In the meanwhile, people are losing their house back and forth, like there is no tomorrow, and it's still happening. Eviction notice, people, I mean, it is affect not only people in the third world, but it affects people right here. And it has no geopolitical boundaries. It goes everywhere, anywhere. The big guy with money, they expatriate their money because they don't want Uncle Sam to get his sticky hand on it. And they know what sticky hands are. They do. And in the same fashion, in January 2010, a huge quake hit Haiti, all right? And we thought people were out to help. The Red Cross collected $488 million, to help rebuild. They were going to bring all those, they were going to start Haiti over. That was the plan. In reality, they built 6 shelters, less than $200 each. And if you don't believe me, you can read let me see, publish the article. There is on the internet this article by okay, ProPublica. Yeah, if you Google that and you put the earthquake and the Red Cross, you'll see. And they were trying to rebuild Haiti and help, and they would bring all those nice talk to people. But that's really, it didn't happen. The money stayed right here, and it doesn't really matter what happened during a disaster. That is the time that policymakers, monetary policymakers, take draconian decisions, because people are scared at that time. You go back to the field of position, and then whatever draconian monetary policy that they want to put in place, it's the time to put it. This is how now we climb in disaster capitalism, talk about what the system is. But this is an idea that started almost a few centuries ago. At the beginning, or during 16th or 15th centuries, the West, starting with Portugal, France, England, Spain, they were grabbing land and resources from around the globe. So that is the first form of mercantilism that become later, that you can call capitalism. Also, those are the same idea. You can see what happened right now. The West is very upset because this wave of migrants are landing in their homeland. But this is a direct result of them depleting the homeland of all these people. Okay? There is a correlation between getting all the resources, whether it was natural product, whether it was depleting the land, whether it was mining, whatever. The West was piling up their silo with everything that the rest of the world owned. Now, people are showing up at your doorstep, not as illegal immigrants. That is not the case. We are your lenders. We're here to demand reimbursement. whether you want it or not, we'll be in France, we'll be in Spain, we will be all over. And regardless you how you put on a Republican, a Trump, or whoever you put in power, you cannot stop us. We'll walk 20,000 miles across the jungle of Latin America, Brazil, Guatemala. We'll find our way, and you cannot stop that. You know, whoever is in power did not start the movement, and you cannot end it. What happened, it was greed that was at the base of that movement, where, as I said, the West was grabbing resources all around the globe to put them in their bank, in their silo, whatever they want to do with it. And now, people look around, the ground is totally barren, cannot produce anything. Now, people will find a way to exist. Make no mistake about it. And I witnessed what happened in Haiti as disaster capitalism is being applied for the past few decades in Haiti. I look where people used to be farmers, they used to grow rice. But at a certain point, there was some official in the Reagan administration that wanted to have the entire market in Haiti for his rice. So they stripped tariffs that were on imported rice. So Haiti turned into a dumping ground for cheap rice producing somewhere, I don't know where. Now, this sector of the economy is totally wiped out. And I'm not naming just country. There are institutions like the IMF, the World Bank. Those are the new mutation of the colonial narratives. They are making deals with the devil. They give a little bit of money to the administrator in the country so they can access whatever they want to access. And IMF lended some money to Duvalier, and for that reason, they killed all the pigs that the peasants, the farmers used to use as their bank account. And as a direct result of that, the farmers in Haiti is supposed to buy a white pig from Iowa to repay IMF the money. And white pig cannot survive in Haiti because those white pigs, you have to have cement structure for them for housing. Our wild pig, they eat anything, nothing, you know, you don't even need to feed them. They make babies, you sell them babies and you make some money. The white pigs, they are very demanding. they want grocery shopping. The peasant said, we will not do grocery shopping for ourselves. How are we going to go buy stuff for you in pet hospital? We don't have hospital for ourselves. How would we have hospital for you, pets? So no way. So, okay, so again, IMF went, and the peasant closed. Now they're all in the big cities selling water, doing all kind of nonsense to survive. And then I used to, when I was growing up, when it come time to go to school, I go to somebody that my parents know. They make me a pant and a pair of shorts, and then I go to a shoemaker that my dad knows. He make me. Now it's all left over from all the goodwills that you know over here. This sector is totally gone. It doesn't exist at all. You will never see a shoemaker, you will never see a tailor, you will never see any of that anymore. For the past, right in front of my eyes, within 2 or 3 decades, all that was totally gone. Dumping rice, dumping leftover clothing, dumping everything is gone. And each one of those is a result of a loan that the World Bank or the IMF make with the Port-au-Prince, with the administration in Port-au-Prince. It's not like you make a deal with the devil. That's the way it is. For the past few weeks or so, there has been somewhat of uprising in Port-au-Prince. Because, again, the Materi administration made a deal with Petrocari, and they lend some money. And part of the deal were to to put some austerity measure to increase price on commodity like fuel that people use every day. They almost double the price of it overnight. For instance, was about the 7th fire because people were so upset. They have to put it back. But I'm telling you, what is happening is not because there's not enough resources to go around. It's basically the people who are running the show want all for themselves. That's basically what is happening. So the history of ending immigration, I'm sorry, is not going to happen. Because remember, people were first visited by the West. Now it's time for the West to be revisited. So, I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Ruben. Definitely adding insight as to how the IMF example added to this narrative of colonialism in contemporary times. Next, I'd like to introduce Mari Mansfield. She's actually an active member in our Immigrant community as well. She herself has actually visited Haiti twice, from my understanding, working with the service learning tribes, and just giving information as to what we can do from here. So please welcome Mari.
Thank you all for being here. I attended the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, Michigan, a city that has a lot in common with Haiti. In spring of 2014 and summer 2015, I had the honor of visiting Haiti with a group of classmates. That's us. I'm down there. We were all artists who wanted to help Haitians provide for their families. Our task was to teach profitable arts and crafts skills to children and adults so that they could sell goods to provide for their families. It was an honor and a privilege to go to Haiti and to meet the people of Port-au-Prince. If you are lucky, you will have the most personal and genuine conversation of your life, and it will be with a Haitian. Haitians have a rich and beautiful arts culture. Our goal was not to teach art, but to teach new ways to recycle products they already had to create new forms of art. In some cases, the lessons were as simple as telling people, white people will buy this. At this one orphanage, we taught rock painting. Many of the kids were confused at first. Why would anyone buy a rock? There are rocks over here, there are rocks over there. Who would buy a rock? Just because we painted it. White people. And that was the lesson. Once the kids had the motivation, the creativity flowed. They painted patterns, mandalas, they painted the Haitian flag. They loved it. We taught many great lessons, paper making, bookbinding, printmaking, origami, and much more. Each lesson was a memorable experience, and we got to know a lot of people, oftentimes without knowing what the other person was actually saying. Many people come to Haiti with the best of intentions to help people, but not every form of service creates meaningful change. Missionaries have a very bad reputation in Haiti. And any kind of service learning trip is seen as a mission. If you are a group of Americans in matching t-shirts, you are a mission. They are seen as pompous white saviors, here to make themselves feel good about helping people without ever asking the people what they need help with. They are known for exploiting images of Haitians to raise money for themselves. The overwhelming majority of missionaries stay in gated hotels. They go from the hotels to the orphanage and back again, spending much of their time looking out at the people through the glass windows of their buses, not actually knowing them. I had the opportunity to meet some missionaries while in Haiti. One woman had been working in Haiti for 8 years, and she would not say merci to the woman who served her dinner. She feared voodoo art and criticized Haitian Catholics for not being Catholic enough. Well, she was also not Catholic. Others seemed completely disgusted by the place they were staying. They didn't want to play with the children or help them practice their English. They seemed to have no idea they were staying in an orphanage and didn't even want to handle their own luggage. Most missionaries seemed comfortable with a clear, distinct barrier between them and the people they were there to help. With this kind of animosity towards people they're supposed to help, it's no surprise that Haitians have such a negative view towards missionaries. One local kid asked one of the guys on our ship, "Why does your white Jesus hate us?" During our time in Haiti, we had the privilege of meeting many local artists. One artist, Salur, his image is there, a world-famous sculptor, told us about the meaning behind some of his work. One of his series was this large collection of these tall statues. Each one of them were covered in shoes from top to bottom. So many shoes, nailed into the surface of these giant long wood pillars. There were stilettos and flip-flops, winter boots, and lots of Crocs. Every shoe was donated by a charity that sends aid to Haiti, with no thought of what the people need. Haitians don't need winter boots or high heels. So much of the aid that comes to Haiti in an effort to help ends up as trash in the streets. That is most of aid to Haiti, trash. One of the organizations we worked with was called the Immigrant Project. The woman who started it, Shelley, told us about its beginning. She came to Haiti to adopt a child. She thought that would be the best way to help the country. When she went to the orphanage to meet the child she was going to adopt, she saw a mother visiting her child in the orphanage. She asked the staff why a mother who gave her child to an orphanage would come visit the child she gave away. The workers at the orphanage explained that many people in Haiti want to take care of their children, but cannot afford the basic needs of food and education. So they give them to the orphanage so they can have those basic needs to survive. She realized that to help orphans, parents needed to afford to care for their children. Seems obvious, but it's not. And so she started the Immigrant Project. She taught a small group of women, just in a home in Haiti, how to make bracelets, and started selling them to tourists and online. The business grew, and now the Immigrant Project employs 250 people. The Immigrant Project has a daycare and a school for the employees' children, and they have pilot programs for the employees so that they can learn computer skills, management training, CPR, and personal finance, so that they can grow this business and their own one day. Haitians don't want handouts. They want to build their own lives. The Immigrant Project has done so well creating sustainable work for so many that employees have started adopting children from orphanages, creating their own positive change for Haiti. Working with the Immigrant Project on our first trip, we created 4 new jobs. That doesn't seem like a lot, but that is 4 families who now have the sustainability of a job and are able to contribute to their own economy and create their own positive change for Haiti. Creating this kind of change may seem intuitive, but many come to Haiti to serve, not giving skills to the people, but using their own skills. Many mission groups come to Haiti to build a playground, to build a building, to build another church, and to hand out supplies, medical supplies, candy for the children. A mission trip that raises money and sends people to Haiti to do good works, that ends up building something for Haitians, takes away jobs from Haitians. Like Ruben said with the rice, every bag of rice that is brought to Haiti gets rid of the job to grow rice for one Haitian. Where am I? Though it may make the people feel good to give in that kind of way, the more practical service would just be to donate money they raise to an organization in Haiti so they can hire a local building crew and employ local Haitians. Haitians don't need another mission, they don't need another church. If that's all they needed to thrive, they would have done it already. Haiti needs teachers to bring skills. They need engineer teachers who can teach sustainable building techniques that would not rely on expensive materials and unstable materials like concrete. They need doctor teachers to teach at-home cancer screenings and CPR and nurses trainings. They need agricultural teachers to teach different ways to combat the deforestation and to grow new farms. They need activist teachers to teach organizing strategies and bargaining rights. They need people who can bring skills that will make a difference long after leaving Haiti. When Haitians have access to all the skills they need to thrive, service trips will be obsolete. And that should be the goal of every service trip, to become unnecessary. And most importantly, what Haiti needs is for you to buy Haitian goods, buy Haitian coffee. I don't even drink coffee, but it's great apparently. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much, Mari. Definitely providing more like what we can do to help out the Haitian community, people in Haiti for sure. Next, I'd like to point out some demands that we have here. Definitely call your House representatives and demand that a permanent solution to temporary protective status, TPS, and the U.S. intervention in Haitian government, because we all know what that can lead to, and also legalization for everyone, for all. Also, I also want to point out that we have materials from MIRAC and the Haiti Justice Committee of Minnesota over there on the table for more information. And just another reminder, Michelle Rivero's resources for, if in case you know of anyone who would benefit from these sources, more information there. And just speaking from representatives of MIRAC, we also have materials for our petition for municipal ID. You can definitely ask people around the table for more information on that and help support us at the Mexican Independence Day Festival for tomorrow. That aside though, and I'm not sure how much we have of it, but we have food over there in the back, so please help yourselves with at least sample portions. And we have tables covering each topic that we talked about today. Feel free to convene whatever people interest you the most and to have more group discussions. Any questions?
I just wanted, on the Haiti Justice Committee, we will post a list of some progressive organizations in Haiti if you want to make contributions. There's legal organizations that are working where the Haitians are basically in charge of the organization, so that it's one way how Mari was talking about contributing. So we will put that on the Haiti Justice Committee Facebook page for people to look at.
Great. And in case someone could hear that, yes, there's a Facebook page for the Haiti Justice Committee. Minnesota, they have a lot of different organizations that they can connect you to, providing all sorts of resources. Any other questions? Yes, Erica.
This is kind of like question, but I also kind of wanted to make a comment because, so one, I because of the purposeful invisibility, I also don't know a lot about the current events in Haiti, and so maybe if in the small group discussion we could talk a little bit about like what's happening now, because, you know, another way of support is solidarity with the Haitian struggle, meaning like we support Haitians taking power in whatever form they want to take power, and like to make it a really visible solidarity struggle as well. And I really want to kind of address the point too with the like calling the representatives. I don't know if the Haiti Justice Committee or folks would be interested, because TPS is affecting a lot of groups, and we're not seeing that kind of solidarity between El Salvador and Nicaragua and Haiti. And I think it would be great to demand permanent solution for TPS and legalization together sometime before the elections. In our work around the municipal ID, we have been told by 4 different people and officials in the city that they refuse to talk or vote on municipal ID before the November elections because they don't want to force politicians running for office at the state level to out loud say they support immigrants, which is disgusting. And I want us to be in front of those offices to force them out loud, these candidates, to actually say, I support immigrants. So I think if we could work on something like that in the future, that'd be awesome.
Yes.
This question is for Michelle. Yes. What is the lowest level of government that would have any kind of power for the TPS? Is it only federal government, or are there lower levels of government that we could pressure?
It's the federal government that decides whether to extend TPS or not. As far as municipalities are concerned, they can encourage the federal government to extend TPS, and TPS was recently extended for Somalia. But that was one thing that the mayor of Minneapolis was doing, was encouraging the Trump administration to extend TPS. But municipalities and counties do not have the power to make a determination on TPS or extend TPS anyway.
Okay, thank you.
We'll just take a couple more questions before we get into groups. Brad, over there in the back.
Yeah, just to go a little deeper on that too, it's only the federal government, but it's in fact the executive. It's not Congress, it's the administration. So the president has the power to grant TPS or yank TPS from any country at any time. Trump tomorrow could wake up and reverse himself on Haiti. So that, you know, the pressure should, for TPS specifically, go to the president and, you know, top administration officials.
So, and I'm sorry, I also wanted to say that as far as what congressional representatives can do, there's been this tension, right, between the president and the legislature with regard to TPS. So in deciding to end TPS, the representatives of the executive are saying, well, the legislature should be doing something, knowing full well that the legislature is not planning on doing anything. So that's where it really makes a difference to communicate with your elected representatives to demand legislation to protect these individuals. And I totally agree with what Erica was saying with regard to identifying that this struggle, this challenge impacts Haitians for sure, but also impacts Salvadorans, Hondurans, you know, Liberians, every category of individuals who have TPS. They're in this same situation where they've been in the United States long enough to establish family ties that to individuals who would experience significant hardship if they were removed from the United States.
Yes.
What's the status of the Haitian government today? I mean, is it like somewhat good, bad? Is it a dictatorship? I mean, is it functional? I mean, if you go there, would you want to be even involved with the government, or would you be avoided as much as possible?
Functional, barely. Is there an administration in place? Yes. The same kind of demagogy, or demagogy, how you say that in English, that has been that has plagued every administration in Haiti is this very exact same thing. And some of the stuff that are coming out within the past few weeks are just repulsive. You know, I just learned that a senator in Haiti makes so much money. It's almost 50 times more than what a U.S. senator is making. This is how much they killing the money. They don't do anything with I mean, it is a mess. See, a senator in Haiti receives almost 14,000 US dollars a month for his second residence. That's the way. That's how they make the thing. And he has a driver and 2 bodyguards, and he has free phone, free fuel for the car that the government gave, and free car. I mean, they are worst things that you ever know. And, you know, that's how they are. You know? And this is what's happening. This is why I blame IMF and the World Bank, because they will grant them the money that they want, and then put taxes and all kind of austerity measure on the people to repay the money with interest. And this is how Diwali got to stay in power so much, because World Bank and all those are giving him the money that he wanted, and then they tax people. Even if, in fact, during the quake, part of the assistance that goes to Haiti stay in the port of entry because of a 20% tax that people in that administration, in the group, wanted to put on those relief to get them. Some of them never get out of Port-au-Prince, stay in. To this day, they are part of staff that were to deliver on the earthquake, around the earthquake time, that is still being running in Port-au-Prince because of the tariff that some organizations refused to pay or whatever. So it existed, and it got the support of outsiders. You know, some of the administration, like if you take the example of the Aristide administration, it wasn't in line with the superpower, with France, with the US. So he get deported, he get kidnapped, you name it. But now, once the administration is in line with the superpowers, they're good to do whatever they want. So somehow, this is how they can bring in rice. They get the entire market, but the rice there's no tariff on the rice. Okay, I mean, it's really another nightmare. The administration, in collaboration, as I said, it was good when the enemy was a white settlers that were accountable to France. But now, when it is a black guy who looks just like you, who's a Haitian, you know, it is colonialism from within. They don't go and take the resources. They negotiate with the administrator to say, now, this is what you're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And then we give you as much money as you want. It's easy to call up 1 or 2 or 3 people to buy them out and to get to impose draconian measures on the rest of the population. This is what's going on. Wow. Yeah, it's very disturbing.
Thanks so much for that, Ruben. All right, so we're going to proceed with the program. Refreshments, food in the kitchen. Like I said, feel free to go to either of the 4 tables and we can proceed with the discussion. That aside, thank you so much for coming, guys. We really appreciate it. Stay tuned for any future events we have coming up. We're planning on having a series of different events covering different parts of Latin America, maybe throughout the world as well, keeping ourselves informed and whatnot. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you for working with us.